What inspires us to buy? Well, you may remember that when I introduced you to the Loyalty Loop last week, we talked about moments of inspiration. It turns out there are three types of moments of inspiration, three big categories that send people on a journey they never expected to buy something they didn't even know they needed. And on this week's episode of the Loyalty Loop, we are going to break down those three types of moments of inspiration. Why? Because if you want ROI, you need to understand the MOIs. Yep, I'll explain exactly what these three types are and how to take advantage of them to build a better brand, design a better consumer experience, and differentiate you from your competition. All of that and more from the banks of the very swollen, mighty Mississippi right here in St. Louis, Missouri. All right, quick refresher. Moments of inspiration are an instant in time that sends you on a journey you never expected. So let's break down the three different types of MOIs there are. For the first type, you might remember the very first video I ever shot for the Loyalty Loop. It's this one right here, and it's all about my journey to buy a brand new car. Well, that video is the perfect example of the first type of moment of inspiration. You might remember that I got a letter from the car company inviting me to return my car because my lease was ending. The letter was from Rachel, the leasing maturity manager. And in that letter, she gave me the list of steps I needed to do to return the car. Here's the thing, she created a moment of inspiration. The car company themselves created an MOI. They are sending me on a journey I never expected, and that is the very first type of moment of inspiration. Type number one is called the brand-induced MOI. You see, every time you send an invoice or an email or you share a link, every time you send out a newsletter or a coupon or a discount code, every time you ask for a connection request, you may be sparking a brand-induced moment of inspiration. Think about the impact these little moments can have on the people you're reaching. Think of them as an opportunity to build a better experience. All right, number two, the second type of MOI. You might remember that last year, in one of my Loyalty Loop videos, we went to Michael's craft store. Why? Because I had just moved and I needed some affordable, massive art for the massive walls in our rental home in Florida. You see, that journey was inspired by a moment in my life, that move into a new rental, and it's a perfect example of the second type of MOI. The second type is called a consumer-induced MOI. A consumer-induced moment of inspiration is generated by an instant in the life of your consumer. Maybe they wake up with a rash on their arm, maybe they just bought a new house, or they find out they're pregnant, or maybe they just had their first child, maybe they get a new job, a promotion, maybe their boss gets fired, or maybe they get laid off, maybe they get a new boss, or maybe their spouse gets a new job, maybe they get divorced or got married, maybe they had a death in the family, or maybe they moved in with their significant other. These moments might be complicated, but they're unbelievable opportunities to own the consumer journey. And remember, don't think of consumer-induced MOIs as always big things. They could be really small things, like you just ate a tuna salad sandwich and you have tuna salad breath, and maybe you need to buy some gum. These are all examples of consumer-induced MOIs. These complicated consumer-induced MOIs are waterfalls. They're going to go on a lot of consumer journeys over the next few days or weeks or months or maybe even years. And it's our job to be part of that journey. All right, the third and final type of MOI is a really, really fun one. You see, if you're scrolling through Instagram and you notice that a friend of yours has posted an unbelievable picture of the dish she just made using her brand new Instapot, and you decide you want an Instapot, that is a moment of inspiration created by the media platform you're on. Or maybe you're watching the television news, and I live in South Florida, and it just became hurricane season, and there's all of this stuff on the news about how to prepare for a hurricane. There are checklists you can download and stuff you need to do to your house, and this is also coming from a media platform. It is coming from the news. It's sending me on a journey to get that new garage door that we talked about a few weeks ago. The third kind of moment of inspiration are called media-induced MOIs. Yeah, the media has the power to inspire you to go on a journey you never expected, and this happens unbelievably often. Even if you're reading an article about something and you see the name of someone, a thought leader who's given a quote in that article, you might Google the thought leader, find out they run a company, and next thing you know, 3 months later, you're buying their product or service. That is a media-induced moment of inspiration. It sent that person on a journey they never expected. So there's a super secret question I've told you about before that you can ask the next client or customer that walks in the door that will help you unravel what inspired them to walk in. Remember that super secret question? What inspired you to ... Well, when you ask that question, you've got to be looking for the type of MOI that they give you. Maybe they say they moved into a new house. Well, that's a consumer-induced MOI. Maybe they said they were searching a hashtag about project management on Twitter and they saw that you were participating. That's a media moment of inspiration. Or maybe they say they got an invoice from their prior vendor and it's too expensive and they were looking for better options and just did a Google search. That is a brand-induced moment of inspiration. So make sure you ask the next client or customer that you talk to, what inspired you to ... I am here in St. Louis talking about moments of inspiration, and I'm actually going to go and get ready for my speech. But in the meantime, if you're enjoying the Loyalty Loop series, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss next week's, and I will see you next week in my Loyalty Loop.